Okay, who are you?
Lisa Olson. I'm a staffing consultant for LiveSearch, and today I'm actually going to show you what or how to do the process for submitting your resume to Microsoft.
Excellent.
When you're ready to submit your resume to Microsoft, you'll go ahead and go to microsoft.com/careers. From there, you'll see the different international locations that we have. So I went ahead and clicked on United States, which brought me to this page right here. From here, you can do searches based on several different locations, or categories. There's job titles, locations, categories, products, and there's actually keyword searches too. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is a Redmond-based search for software development with LiveSearch, since it's a cool product. And we're going to go ahead and type in data mining too. Search, and it'll bring up this page right here with the available jobs. So I'll go ahead and click on the first one. And then if you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see two different ways that you can submit your resume. There is Submit Resume, which is on the bottom right, and you'll just submit directly for this role, or there's Add to Job Cart. So what you can do is add several different jobs to the cart and then go ahead and submit it just one time. So in order to do this, you will need a Windows Live ID account, and it only takes a couple minutes to create one. I went ahead and signed in, so I'm just going to click Submit Resume, and then it'll bring me to this. Before you can click Submit now, you will need to say what prompted you to apply to Microsoft. So at the very bottom is Jobs Blog, Microsoft Jobs Blog. So select that, and then go ahead and press Submit now. And then all your information will be sent over.
Awesome. So at that point I had a resume and I uploaded it and it's now submitted for that job?
Correct.
Excellent.
Easy enough. Unfortunately, there's no magic number for what you should be applying to. What you really need to think about is which ones are you really interested in applying for. I know there's a lot of jobs, SDEs out there to apply to. Now, are you really interested in all, 500 jobs or however many are open? Probably not. The other thing to consider is, are you qualified for all those jobs too? Look at the job requirements, take a look. I mean, if you really think about it and narrow it down, it'll probably be around the 10 to 15 mark. That's just the number that I would guess, but obviously apply to all the ones you're interested in and qualified for. So when you submit your resume to a specific role, what the recruiter will do is search those resumes using a Boolean search for all the resumes that were submitted to that position. So you can try to kind of figure out what the keywords are that we're using based off of the job requirements and the job description. At the same time, we have 200 plus recruiters that are also doing just generic searches on our site. So even though you might not apply to a role, you might still get contacted by another recruiter. I still do recommend just applying specifically for positions so you can still get pulled in that category. First and foremost, keep your resume up to date. It sounds pretty easy, but it sometimes doesn't happen, and it's unfortunate when you find a really great candidate, but there's no correct email address, it bounces back, the phone number's no longer there, and you don't have a way to contact the candidate. So definitely contact information up to date is important. The other one is work history. I mean, if you go and you get another degree, if you have another job opportunity, whatever it is, just make sure you keep your resume up to date so we have the latest information. So the next tip I would say is don't have a generic summary statement at the very top. An example would be, I like software, or looking for a role where I can contribute, something like that, because it really doesn't help bring out a recruiter to say, oh, that's a great candidate. Instead, think about your accomplishments, your achievements, your interests, all of that, and make sure you can summarize that. A good example would be senior software .NET developer specializing in data mining techniques for an online web search, something like that. And that will help us then kind of see more of your information, more of your qualifications instead of, I like software.
So that's sort of where a resume dies, in that first sentence when you have that generic and it's not detailed? Is that...
Well, Gretchen, with what she has said in the past, is above the fold equals gold. So think about your first resume page. Fold it in half, look at that top half piece. All of that is what's going to catch the recruiter. So if they're really intrigued, they'll keep reading. If they're not, they're going to stop. Next one is going to be tailor your resume to meet the job requirements. So don't just have a generic resume to send to every different role. So if you have a program manager opportunity or a software development opportunity, make sure you customize it and bring out your skills and qualifications that map to it. So look at the job requirements, and that might help you pull some or extract some information out. At the same time, be honest with your background and skills, and don't exaggerate, because we always can double check and reference and things like that. So just be honest with what you really can do. So ensure you have keywords listed on your resume too. When we do our Boolean searches, we do have to find a way to pull up resumes that meet the qualifications. We're obviously going to be kind of looking at the qualifications that are listed in the job description, so if you can take a look at that and kind of add in programming languages, technologies, whatever it is, but don't just have a keyword section listed. Make sure you include it as part of your work experience. So if you do have C++, go ahead and say how you developed in C++. When we see the keyword area, it's kind of like, well, what exactly are they focusing on? Do they know all of this, or what's their main interest? So just make sure to include it within the job experience. Talk about your achievements and awards. One thing I was always told is made, saved, achieved. So when you're doing it, think about numbers. So I made the company a multi-million-dollar deal, or I saved them 10% of their manual processes that they did by automating this thing. So think about numbers and percentages and incorporate those into your achievements. Oh yeah, next one is unmark your resume. So in Microsoft Word, what you can do is make changes, and it'll like cross it out in red, but you have to accept it in order to have the real format. Well, sometimes we get those unmarked resumes, and an example is a colleague of mine had a candidate that sent in a resume, and it said he led a team of 3 team members or something like that, and one of his friends had marked up, oh, why don't you exaggerate that number so it sounds a little better. Luckily the candidate didn't do it, but yeah, just make sure you unmark those changes because we can see them.
Excellent.
So also include links in your resume to either an online website that has your personal projects or portfolio or something like that, so we can see some of the stuff that you've been developing, or see user interfaces that you've created too, and it just helps us get a better idea instead of reading just text. And also use a personal email address, so don't use a work email address because you probably don't want, job opportunities to be sent to where you're currently working. No .edu accounts is what I would recommend, just because if you graduate and you move on, it's probably going to get disabled, and again, we won't have a way of contacting you. And the last one is just make sure that your personal address is professional too, so no hotgirls@live.com or anything like that, but just kind of put your name or something like that.
That should be obvious.
Yes. Our candidate tracking system, as well as other companies too, it converts your resume to plain text format. So although you might have your resume in a Word document, go ahead and also put it or paste it into Notepad, see what it looks like, make sure it looks pretty, and then go ahead and submit it that way.
Okay.
Last but not least, don't worry about being braggy. I know you're talking about yourself on your resume and you might kind of feel awkward, but recruiters have to do the same thing. We feel braggy, but it just wants to bring out your qualifications and skills, and the only way we know about it is if you talk about yourself. So,
Excellent.
yeah.